श्री श्री राधा गोपीनाथ भगवान की जय, श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय। Hare Krishna. So let's start with Mangalacharana. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapad Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tushe Namaha. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhakte Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Louder. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Today is a special day, it marks the beginning of Julan Yatra, so very enthusiastically once more, Hare Krishna! Welcome everyone in temple or the online viewers as well. So today we are reading verse 14 from Is it better? It's better. Okay. So today we are reading from chapter 30th, verse 14 of the third canto. I did the other way around. So 3.30.14. Yeah. Okay. Tatrapi ajat nirvedo Briyamana swayam bhrite Jaryopata verupyo Marnabhimukho grihe Tatrapi ajat nirvedo Briyamana swayam bhrite Jarayopata verupyo Marnabhimukho grihe Tatrapi jata nirvedo Briyamana swayam bhrite Jaryopata verupyo Marnabhimukho grihe
Tatrapi ajata nirvedo Briyamana swayam vrite Jarayopatra vairupyo Maranabhimukho grihe Tatrapi ajata nirvedo Briyamana swayam vrite Jarayopatra vairupyo Maranabhimukho grihe
Marnabhimukho grihe. Would any matajis like to try? Briyamana swayam bhrite Jaryopata verupyo Marnabhimukho grihe. Tatra, there. Api, although. Ajat, not arisen. Nirveda, aversion. Briyamana, being maintained. Swayam, by himself. Bhrite, by those who were maintained. Jaraya, by old age. Upata, obtained. Vairupya, deformation. Marna, death. Abhimukha, approaching. Grihe, at home. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Please repeat after me. The foolish family man does not become averse to family life, although he is maintained by those whom he once maintained, deformed by the influence of old age. He prepares himself to meet ultimate death. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Family attraction is so strong that even if one is neglected by family members in his old age, he cannot give up family affection, and he remains at home just like a dog. In the Vedic way of life, one has to give up family life when he is strong enough. It is advised that before getting too weak and being baffled in material activities and before becoming diseased, one should give up family life and engage oneself completely in the service of the Lord for the remaining days of his life. Therefore, it is enjoined in the Vedic scriptures that as soon as one passes 50 years of age, he must give up family life and live alone in the forest. After preparing himself fully, he should become a sannyasi to distribute the knowledge of spiritual life to each and every home. So let's do a little recap. So in the last few verses, it's been explained the time factor is really strong. It eventually destroys everything. And because of that, the conditioned souls will lament. Because they think the body and everything related to this body, like family, house, land, wealth, they are all permanent. But conditioned souls, we think this because of our ignorance. We also saw how a householder is or remains always attached to his family life. Tries to maintain his family, may not be able to. And in today's verse as well, we'll see how a foolish person is still attached to the family life, even though the person is being neglected by the family members. Can't maintain them, can't maintain the family. One of the examples of family attachment we see in Mahabharata, Dhritarashtra. So in the first canto, 13th chapter, Vidura, he strongly chastises Dhritarashtra to take him out of ignorance. He tells him, you are old. You have always been blind. Your hearing, it has deteriorated now. Memory, it's even shorter. Intelligence, that's disturbed. And look at your teeth, they are loose. You are coughing up mucus. So he strongly spoke about, these things like the symptoms of old age, which this Dhritarashtra, he developed, but he didn't really pay much attention to it. So as we know, with material body, it dwindles. It goes through 6 transformations. So birth, then it develops, stays like that, creates or reproduces, dwindles, and then vanishes. So Vidura was giving a warning to Dhritarashtra. Death is approaching, because he doesn't seem to be worried about his future in that sense, which resonates with materialistic people nowadays. With this temporary body, they want to settle in permanently, or it's not going to go anywhere in that sense. It'll last forever. Always thinking in terms of family, children, kids, society, country, and they'll give protection, to us. But these things, they are temporary, and just being caught up in these things make us forget the prime duty of life. So saints like Vidura, they remind us of or in that particular instance, Dhritarashtra, of the duty and prepare himself to quit his body. So when Vidura returned to Hastinapur, his purpose was to enlighten Dhritarashtra and encourage him to quit home. So he was a great devotee, Vidura, and a saintly person. So he knew how to deal with people, as per a person's necessity. So we may say, I'm already a devotee. I know, yes, the body would, this is a material body, it'll dwindle. So yeah, I know it. But from these dealings, it's important to understand how can we apply, like from a practical perspective, right? So with the interaction, we can learn how to interact with people around us. And why do we need to do so? Like as a devotee, when we look around in this material world, we see so much of distress. As Krishna says, it's a dukhalaya, place full of miseries. So miseries, no one wants them. They come on their own. People don't say, oh, I've been having, really good time for so long. When will my bad time come? No, they don't pray for like the bad time to come, but it still comes. Yeah. So we hear people saying, oh, why bad things happen to good people, or good things happen to bad people. That's even more concerning. Like why good things happen to bad people. So we hear such things. Never heard of why aren't bad things happening to me? I wish something bad happens to me. We don't hear these things, right? So no one wants distress, but it anyway comes, right? And people then complain like, oh, why am I in such a terrible situation? Why me? When would it end? I can't wait. I can't bear it. So for us, from practical perspective, we shouldn't be unnecessarily speaking about distress or in a way like it causes distress to others. And also like not taking pleasure in spreading bad news. So this is what we learn from Vidra. So for example, he knew Pandavas are so close to Krishna. And he knew about Krishna's disappearance. But he knew it will hurt Pandavas and it will cause so much pain. So he didn't tell, rather he was like, they'll find out eventually. It'll come, or they'll come to know anyway. Because nowadays, when we see a person may say something bad or deliver some bad news, and if you even try to check, oh, you shouldn't have said that. I didn't lie. I just mentioned a fact, and they need to know. If he or she, they don't like it, that's not my problem, but they need to be aware of it. They need to know it. Yes, that's true, but we need to understand. Speaking about distress or telling them, it won't make it better, but we'll say, we just spoke about Vidra strongly chastised Dhritarashtra. So Vidra knew, one thing that was required to shake Dhritarashtra. And Vidra knew from the past experience that Dhritarashtra, he was strongly attached to his sons. So this attachment was stopping him to even act truthfully, to discriminate what's right and what's not, or what's wrong. So for example, like before Kurukshetra war, Dhritarashtra knew, Duryodhana was following the path of adharma. And he knew it will destroy the Kuru dynasty. He was in a powerful position, as a king. He could have done something, but because of the attachment, he just blamed, oh, that might be the destiny. It's inevitable fate. So Vidura, he used those strong words to remind Dhritarashtra, your relatives are dead. Your body is failing due to old age. You can see those symptoms. Your death, it's approaching fast. It's almost here. And it may not have convinced Dhritarashtra, so he was, he kept telling him, you're living like a dog at the house of Bhishma. That Bhishma, who killed all your sons with the Pandavas, he was trying to basically, shake him. So it hurt like Dhritarashtra's false ego. So Vidra knew it was necessary to do that because Dhritarashtra, he was a Kshatriya, and using such strong words would convince him to renounce the world and to seek the Lord's protection, which is the ultimate purpose of human life. We may have many friends or, the family, kids, brothers, sisters, state, but no one can protect us if we are not protected by the Lord. Sometimes we hear people, oh, I'm so lucky, I've now migrated to Australia, I feel so safe. But no one can protect us if we are not protected by the Lord. So we must seek the Krishna's protection. So there are many lessons we can learn from Vidra's dealings. One, as we spoke, how to interact with people, and in particular, which is beneficial both for us and for them, for our bhakti. So we can also learn that we need to have, or we should have, empathy. When we talk with people, we should consider their feelings more than our own. So, for example, when we talk to a child, so we kneel down, we come to that level. Because for a child, we understand just looking up towards us, it's quite uncomfortable. So we make the child comfortable by coming to their level, right? But sometimes you may say, I strongly feel like I should say this, or, I think I'm right, and the other person is not. But we should try to say it in such a way, it's not going to hurt other person. Krishna also talks about austerity of speech in Bhagavad Gita. The austerity is to keep the other person's interest as a priority, rather than just my urge to speak or to tell. So, but at the same time, we shouldn't be too sentimentally gentle and allow them to suffer because of their attachments. So, for example, Krishna says in second chapter, 2.3 verse, he called Arjuna Kalebyam. So what it means is, if son of a Kshatriya declines, says no to fight, so he's Kshatriya in the name only. Like if a Brahmana or son of a Brahmana acts impiously, so he is Brahmana in the name only. So those Kshatriyas or those Brahmanas, they are called unworthy sons of their fathers. So Krishna didn't want Arjuna to become an unworthy son. So it was like a great insult or offense, to a Kshatriya. So Krishna said that to shake up, inspire Arjuna, to inspire him to fight. So in the same way, when Vidra told Dhritarashtra, you're eating remnants here, give up your family attachments. So that was the intent. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says or talks about 4 elements of austerity of speech. So when he says, Anudvega karam vakyam satyam prayahitam chayat swadhyaya abhyasanam chaiva vanmayam tap uchyate. So austerity of speech, vanmayam tap uchyate, is to speak things which are anudvega karam vakyam. So those words which do not agitate others. Satyam, truthful. Priya, pleasing. Hitam, which are beneficial. So, Swadhyaya Bhasanam Chaiva. So here it involves Swadhyaya, study, and Abhyasanam, practice. So Srila Prabhupada, he translates as regular recitation of scriptures. Because sometimes you find people think being sarcastic is a sign of intelligence, So where they hurt other people, and the way they speak, the more it hurts, the smarter they think, or the clever it is. And they think, oh, my choice of words was so great. I was being so clever. It must have cut through, Pinched that person so hard. I'm so smart, I did that. Being sarcastic, it may require cleverness, no doubt. But is it desirable use of cleverness? No. Desirable use of cleverness is to bring other people close to Krishna. It could be like bringing other people close to to Krishna through us. So keeping them on the right track. So on the right track means in general, even at the material level, just not agitating people, they're not alienating them, rather educating them. So when we say, or someone may say, Avidra spoke so strongly to Dhritarashtra, he agitated him, but he didn't alienate him. So as a sadhu, as a saintly person, he cuts the attachment using his words. So, which was good to become detached from the body. And before he actually spoke those words, he had a deep, strong connection, strong relationship with Dhritarashtra. So when he spoke those words penetrated. Otherwise, they won't penetrate, whatever, I don't care. Does he even know me? He's not even my well-wisher. So he had that deep and strong relationship. Because if we just chastise people, so instead of cutting the attachment or unearth our, we may end up cutting their bhakti lata or, bhakti people. So we may think like, I've spoken Krishna's message though, for other person's good. But just having the good intentions is not enough in itself. People should trust us. They should feel, yes, we are saying it because we are their well-wishers. Then they would be able to see our good intentions. Otherwise, like in computers, you see the default setting. So by default, the setting is, they would see us with suspicion, doubt. Why did that person say that? They may consider our words to be very insensitive or really harsh in one sense, insensitive. And it can close or, make them go away from Krishna sometimes, even though we never intend that. It's okay to be straightforward. We may sometimes come across like too direct, but we should try to speak in a way which is not agitating to other people and which will help them to come closer to Krishna. Even though sometimes it could be unpalatable, but it doesn't mean we don't have to speak those things. We hear for feedback, at work, sometimes the example is given of the sandwich, or in general, we hear about the sandwich approach. Sorry. So with the sandwich approach, we start with something positive. We then include, the improvements. And then again, we finish or end with, or on a positive note, say something positive. So like the sandwich. So with non-agitating speech, it calms down the people. It opens up their mind, opens up their hearts. So like if you go to a doctor, so doctor's behavior, should help a patient feel comfortable, reassured, like, okay. So similarly with austerity of speech, it's not just as a devotees, but applies to everyone. Even in our day-to-day life or relationships, because everyone, has conflicts in family or society. But if you think about it, it could be generally carelessness in speech, insensitivity in dealings. We say, I didn't think about it much, or I just said that. We don't have to, or we shouldn't be saying the false things. But it's important. Krishna said, Anudvega karam vakyam satyam priya hitam. So he said the speech should be non-agitating, like anudvegam, and satyam. So in a non-agitating way, we should speak the truth. Chanakya Pandit, he once said, if you want to rule the world, the greatest power could be the power of proper speech. We see Prabhupada, he also says we should call a spade a spade. But at the same time, we always see he's always very sensitive in his speech. He distinguished between like philosophical differences and cultural etiquettes. Because sometimes, when we say, if you are in distress, you should go look towards the Shastras. The best way, or one of the ways we can say, when we say Swadhyaya Abhyasam Chaiva, we hear like you should memorize verses, and some people may say, oh, it's such a headache I get, it's such a burden, I can't remember, or I always forget. But we should understand it, like it'll unburden our heart. So when we are in difficulty, we would be able to easily take shelter of those verses. So knowledge in books is like money in bank account, but knowledge in memory is like money in your pocket. So coming back to this austerity of speech. So even if there's some unpleasant news, so we should try to give it in a non-agitating way, so that hearer can take the benefit of it. Otherwise, what will happen is the hearer's mind will get too disturbed. They may think the speaker is quite rude, unapproachable. So they may not be able to accept the truth or act on it. So if something truth, even presented in the wrong way, can alienate a person from Krishna rather than bringing him closer to the Krishna. So we were speaking about like Vidura, for example. So from his behavior with the Dhritarashtra and the Pandavas, we can see, so we shouldn't be sentimentally compassionate or insensitively harsh when we act with people. So we should act keeping in mind their ultimate benefit. So we need to know when to say what, like when to use those strong words, when not to speak like unpalatable truth. So this thing requires maturity in terms of emotional maturity and spiritual maturity, which Vidura had. So after hearing from Vidura, Dhritarashtra, he leaves the home, he goes to the forest. And as in today's purport, it's mentioned, a person should go to the forest, after he's 50 years old, like give up your family life and engage completely in the service of the Lord for the remaining days of one's life. We see Krishna saying in Bhagavad Gita, Antakale cha mam eva smaram muktva kalevaram ya prayati samadbhavam yati nasti atar samshaya. So whoever at the end of his life quits his body remembering me alone, at once attains my nature, and there is no doubt. So Antakale cha mam, so if at the time of death, smaran muktava kalevaram, one remembers me alone, certainly that person would be liberated from the body. So if a person lives like this, will attain my nature. There is no doubt about it. So what Krishna is saying is important. Like we have to remember him at the time of death, so we can go back to him. When we talk in general to people, they'll say, if I can't see something, I doubt that thing. I want some evidence. So what's the evidence? What would be the result? What's the guarantee? So Krishna is reassuring. There's no doubt about it. Ata samshaya. So no doubt about it. So how can we understand in our day-to-day life? We need to understand Krishna is here to help us. He's right in our heart. If we think of him on a regular basis or on the daily basis, so at the time of death, we would think of him because we actually develop love for him. Because death is so traumatic. It's impossible to think of anything else except the thing we love the most. We'll automatically take the shelter of that. So, if we have taken shelter of the holy name of Krishna deeply before death, so at the time of death, we'll take his shelter. So he'll take us back. He's eager to take us back home. We need to show him, like, Krishna, I'm thinking of you, I want to come back to you. So he'll take us back. And the question may come like, okay, how to remember Krishna? When at the time of death and when we are alive? We know the answer. We know the solution. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us the solution. The solution is to chant the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Prabhupada, say with this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it will be, or we will be able to remember Krishna at the time of death if we diligently, delightfully chant the Maha Mantra throughout our life. So then we will be able to remember Krishna at the time of death. We hear sometimes Krishna consciousness is being called as the art of dying. Someone who hasn't heard it would be like, oh, that's so negative, so pessimistic attitude, So Srila Prabhupada explains in 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, unless one has a pessimistic view of this material life, considering the distress of body. So body stands for B is birth, O old age, D disease, Y Yamraj, death. So there is no impetus for us to advance in a spiritual life. So as a devotee, are we pessimistic? No. We are more realistic. We hear the example of a glass, half full or half empty. So generally it's being used like someone who sees it half full, it's very optimist person. And who sees half empty, it's very pessimistic kind of the person. But if you are thirsty and if you ask, I need a glass of water, and someone gives you empty glass, and you're like, oh, it's empty. Don't be so pessimistic. Be optimist. No, I need water. I'm really thirsty. Why are you being so pessimist? No, it's an objective statement. It's a fact. Like, this is empty. I need water, right? So it's not thinking negatively. It's not being pessimistic. It's being objective. So denying reality, it's not being optimist, but we can say a bit foolish, When we say being pessimists are those who can't really see any solution. Oh, there is no way. Nothing can be done. Oh no. But we as devotees, no, we know there is a solution. So we are not pessimists. So in today's verse, it's mentioned, be detached from family. So Prabhupada also explains that what detachment actually means in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So he explains being detached from like wife or spouse, children, home, doesn't mean we shouldn't have any feelings for them. They are natural objects of affection. But if they are not favorable for our bhakti, for our spiritual progress, then we shouldn't be attached to them. Right? So we need to understand, or we must understand the difference between affection and attachment. Sometimes it's being interchangeably used. So affection is like natural human connection, emotional connection, which is important for relationships to exist. Because we relate to the person as a person, not we don't say, oh, Hare Krishna, I love your soul, but not this body. we don't say that, right? We take care of the body, mind, soul, right? So detachment from family members, it could be seen in a negative way, like, oh, what are you talking about? It's not being irresponsible. Detachment means lack of excessive emotional entanglement in the whole material world, in material things, So irresponsibility means you are unwilling to carry your own burden. So for example, if we are in Grahastha ashram, we need to take care of the family. So we can't ignore their emotional needs or spiritual needs, So we shouldn't be too much attached, but we should be affectionate. So we behave responsibly, we act responsibly. And again, we see the examples in Srimad Bhagavatam. Devotees not being attached, but they don't run away from their responsibilities. Parikshit Maharaj, he had 7 days to live, so he lived his home, kingdom, family. But before that, he did his duty with full dedication, determination, sincerity, while he was ruling the kingdom. Because when we speak to someone, generally the excuse for not doing bhakti is, I don't have time, I really don't have time, I'm so much pressed for time. I have to look after my kids, my work, so. But if we look at Parikshit Maharaj, he was a king of the whole world. Can we imagine how many responsibilities he had? He had to look after the whole world. He was, as a king, he's a representative of the Lord. And he made sure he provides that environment to all his citizens to practice devotional service, that conducive environment. So we saw the examples of attachment, like what we shouldn't do, of Dhritarashtra. Even though he knew Duryodhan, he was going on the wrong track, but he allowed it. So we shouldn't be supporting someone who is going on the wrong track just because of our attachment. Oh, my kid is doing this, but I can't say no. The child would be upset, with me. I don't want that to happen. So attachment, like not even correcting the child. I don't want to upset the child. I don't want to be the bad mommy or bad daddy. So we saw in before the Kurukshetra war, Dhritarashtra, he could see Duryodhana was doing wrong, but couldn't stop him. That is the strong attachment. Sometimes we say, oh, that's in scriptures. But in day-to-day life, if we pay a little bit of attention, if we look at things from the Shastra's lens, we would be able to see like the examples in our day-to-day life as well. So for example, when you buy a new home, you move to your home and you tell, someone, a materialistic person, let's say, oh, I moved to a new house, I bought it. So the person would ask, how many bedrooms does it have? You're like, yeah, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Which suburb are you in now? Okay. From inside, internally, they're just trying to ask how much you spend, Okay, well, what's the price like you paid for the house? Sometimes people may not be able to control this urge. They straight away ask, so what was the price like? But if you tell a devotee, oh, I've moved, I bought a house, I moved to a new house. Like, devotee would ask, is it far from temple? Like, would you be able to come to a temple like you do now? So this is affection, they ask you such questions, And if he or she is your close friend, you haven't moved far from my place, right? So we would be still able to read together, right? So those are the things, which will come up. So you can see like, oh, I really relish reading, with you. With online, it may not be the same. So that is affection. Like, yes, we both want to like spiritually grow. So in today's purport, for example, the last line reads, after preparing himself fully, he should become a sannyasi to distribute the knowledge of spiritual life to each and every home. So to understand this, taking sannyas, like, is it in terms of going to the forest? In Kali Yuga, the recommendation, as we know, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, Kalav nasteva, 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 gater anyatha. So in this age of Kali Yuga, in this age of quarrel, the only way to be delivered is to chant the holy name. And there is no other way, no other way, no other way. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 12th canto, 3rd chapter, verse number 51, says, although Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, still there is one good quality about this age. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we can become free from material bondage and go to the transcendental kingdom. So I would like to conclude, yes, we should all chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Let's do it once now. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I'll just recap the points which we discussed. So we spoke about we shouldn't be too attached or overly attached to our family, rather. And the example we saw was of Dhritarashtra, who couldn't give up his family attachment. He was really attached to his sons, couldn't stop them from doing the wrong things, even though he was in a powerful position as a king. We also spoke about how Vidra strongly chastised him to bring him out of ignorance. He pointed out that you are growing old, your body is starting to fail, death is approaching fast, and you are forgetting your primary or prime duty. So he enlightened Dhritarashtra using his strong words. So we can learn from Vidra, a saintly person, from his behavior with Dhritarashtra and Pandavas, how we should interact with people around us to help them and help us in bhakti. So not unnecessarily spreading bad news, hurting others, because eventually they'll come to know it. So why to unnecessarily hurt them? And also have empathy, and to act in others' interest, keeping their feelings as a priority more than ours. So we need to have austerity in our speech, and we spoke about the 4 elements, as Krishna said: Anudvegam, non-agitating; Satyam, truthful; Hitam, pleasing; Priya, pleasing; Hitam, beneficial. So even when we try to spread the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message, we need to be mindful of these things so that people can come closer to Krishna. So we don't need to be sentimentally compassionate or over-compassionate in that sense, but not insensitively harsh with people as well. So we spoke about if we want to go back to Krishna, so at the time he said you need to remember him. So how can we remember him at the time of death? Is to remember him throughout our life. And how can we remember him? By chanting the Maha Mantra. And we also spoke about, as devotees, we are not pessimistic. The example of the half full or half empty glass, or just the empty glass. And detachment is not, or doesn't mean not caring about your family. So we need to be affectionate, but not attached. So we shouldn't be using bhakti as an excuse to run away from our responsibilities. And with the sannyasa, so we need to take the sannyas from the material desires. In Kali Yuga, Sankirtana is the recommended practice. Before finishing, would like to just touch on the special occasion we have, Jhulan Yatra. So today is the first day of Jhulan Yatra, the swing festival. So it starts on Pavitropanna Ekashi, which in the waxing phase of the moon, and it will continue until Balram Purnima, like full moon. So it's basically when Lord Balram appears, and that's considered last day of the Jhulan Yatra and beginning of the Lord Balram's appearance day, the festival. So Srila Prabhupada, he instructed us to celebrate the Jhulan Yatra festival for 5 days. So we would be doing here in our temple as well. So would request if you can or try to make time to come for the festivals. This festival, the Julan Yatra festival, the Swing festival, it occurs in the month of Shravan, which is between like July, August time. And it's a rainy season, monsoon season, in Vrindavan. With the rain, it gets, in the summers, it gets a bit humid. Hair is quite thick, heavy. So what Gopas do to please Srimati Radharani and Krishna, they place them on a swing, Julan, which creates a breeze from its own motion, where it swings like goes to and fro. So sometimes they make like a swing shaped like a lotus flower and place them in the heart of the flower. 8 sakis and principal like manjaris, everybody sit on the swing. So there could be different kinds of swings, very opulent or very simple, like made of gold, silver, or simple in terms of wood, simple creepers. So whatever the content, it's the Lord affectionately accepts the loving intent. So by swinging the Lordships, we give them pleasure and we feel the spiritual joy as well. So this festival gives us that rare opportunity to swing the Lordships. It's a service which is done by the most intimate devotees of Srimati Radharani and Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. So it also gives us opportunity to remember the pastimes of the Lordship, which remind us of 3 things. Triple B or 3 B's, if you want to remember it that way. So first B, Bhagwan, God. Then Bhakta, devotee, and Bhakti, the path. So they are all eternal. So we should celebrate these festivals with enthusiasm to connect with Krishna and induce a spirit of devotion in us. So it shouldn't be like resentful devotional service, which won't lead to much spiritual advancement. It's the joyful devotional service. Because resentful would be, why only Krishna has to enjoy? I want to enjoy as well. So not that kind of resentful, rather, if it's joyful, that will make very rapidly, the spiritual advancement. So happily if we do the devotional service. So we'll finish here. Any comments or questions? Okay. So 7-second rule we'll take. So thank you for your time and kind attention. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Hari Hari.